The atmosphere inside the Today with Jenna and Friends studio that morning was as bright and polished as ever. With the familiar gleam of stage lights bouncing off sleek coffee tables and pastel backdrops, the hum of the audience's pre-show chatter, filling the space with an energy that felt warm and expectant, and Jenna Bush Hager wearing her usual warm smile as she prepared to welcome her guest. Kylie Kelce, whose growing presence in the public eye had made her not just Jason Kelce's wife, but a personality in her own right, admired for her intelligence, humor, and straightforward nature. As Kylie stepped onto the stage, applause swelled from the crowd. The cameras tracking her every move as she waved, took her seat, and exchanged a friendly greeting with Jenna, the two settling into their chairs with mugs of coffee in hand. At first, the conversation was light, touching on recent charity work Kylie had been doing and a few playful anecdotes about life with a professional football player. But soon Jenna, perhaps with a nudge from her producers looking for a viral moment, steered the conversation toward Kylie's recent comments in a podcast interview about setting strict boundaries between her private family life and the public's appetite for personal details. Kylie responded calmly, reaffirming her belief that privacy is essential even in the lives of public figures. Her tone firm but measured, drawing supportive murmurs and applause from parts of the audience. But Jenna, leaning forward with a curious yet pointed look, pressed further, suggesting that marrying into NFL fame inherently comes with an unspoken agreement to share more of oneself with the public. A comment that seemed to hang in the air just a second too long. Kylie's posture shifted slightly, her smile tightening as she replied that personal autonomy doesn't disappear with marriage or fame, and that no one, whether famous or not, toes their entire life story to strangers. While her words were polite, there was an undercurrent of steel in her delivery, and some audience members exchanged quick glances, sensing the conversation's tone had shifted from casual to something with sharper edges. Jenna, keeping her trademark pleasantness intact, responded that some fans might see that as being overly guarded, and before she could continue, Kylie leaned forward slightly, her voice calm but resolute, saying that gratitude for public support and the maintenance of personal boundaries are not mutually exclusive, and that framing them as opposites is part of the problem in modern media culture. The audience applauded again, though now with an audible mix of enthusiasm and tension, as if unsure whether they were witnessing a friendly exchange or the beginnings of an on-air standoff. Jenna attempted to move into the next pre-planned question, but Kylie smoothly pivoted back to her point, adding that this wasn't only about celebrities, but about the way society encourages people to treat privacy as optional, and that setting limits should be viewed as strength, not resistance. The interplay between them grew subtly tighter, both women maintaining professional smiles yet clearly holding firm to their perspectives. And when Jenna finally tried to wrap the topic by saying they could agree to disagree, Kylie gave a brief nod, unclipped her microphone with deliberate precision, and stood, turning toward the audience with a calm thank you before walking off stage without looking back. The reaction in the studio was instantaneous, a mix of surprised gasps, scattered applause, and the quick shuffle of crew members adjusting for an unexpected empty chair. Jenna, ever composed, turned back to the camera and assured viewers they'd be right back after a quick break, the upbeat theme music kicking in to mask the backstage scramble. In the control room, producers spoke rapidly into headsets, rearranging the show's segments on the fly, while backstage Kylie was met by staffers trying to smooth things over, though her measured, quiet responses made it clear she was done for the day. By the time the commercial break ended, Jenna was back on air, producing a cooking segment as if nothing unusual had happened. But in the audience, whispers continued, and on social media where clips of Kylie's walk-off were already being posted from phones in the crowd, the moment had begun its transformation from an awkward live TV hiccup into a viral talking point that would dominate headlines by the afternoon. Asterisk. By the time the East Coast lunch hour rolled around, the incident had already broken beyond the usual daytime TV circles, with entertainment blogs posting the clip under headlines, dripping with phrases like on-air tension and unexpected exit, while Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok became ground zero for 1,000 interpretations of what had just unfolded. Some viewers framed Kylie's departure as a masterclass in maintaining dignity under pressure, praising her for not allowing herself to be cornered into sharing more than she wanted, while others argued she had overreacted to what they saw as harmless banter from Jenna. Though, even that camp admitted the exchange had an undercurrent that couldn't be ignored. On sports forums, fans of Jenna Kelce dissected the moment with the same fervor they normally reserved for game day plays, debating whether this would affect the Kelce's brand or whether it might actually boost it by reinforcing their no-nonsense reputation. Meanwhile, within NBC's glass-walled offices overlooking Manhattan, meetings buzzed with discussions about how to frame the incident in official statements, with some producers leaning toward releasing a lighthearted, all-in-good-fun narrative, and others insisting they should respect Kylie's perspective and avoid making it sound like a staged stunt. Jenna herself kept a low profile for the rest of the day, declining interviews and letting her brief on-air comment, "We'll always welcome Kylie back," serve as her only direct statement. A move that was either strategic restraint or a sign she too was still processing the exchange. Kylie, on the other hand, went about her day quietly, spotted leaving the studio with a small entourage, her expression neutral, her phone in hand as messages no doubt poured in from friends, family, and media outlets eager for her side of the story. Though she didn't post anything immediately, people close to her began sharing cryptic Instagram stories featuring quotes about boundaries and self-respect, which fans quickly interpreted as indirect commentary. As the afternoon wore on, the story began drawing in unexpected voices. Media critics weighed in on whether Jenna had crossed a line. PR experts debated the optics, and even a few fellow celebrities subtly sided with Kylie by liking fan posts that praised her walk-off. By evening, the clip had surpassed 1 million combined views across platforms, spurred on by reaction videos, parody reenactments, and slow-motion breakdowns that analyzed every raised eyebrow and tightened smile from the segment. What had started as a tense but relatively brief moment between two professionals had now taken on the life of a full-blown media event. And while NBC executives privately hoped it would fade within the news cycle, it was becoming clear that both Kylie and Jenna would be asked about it for weeks, if not months. 2. Come setting the stage for a conversation that had already outgrown the studio where it began. Asterisk. The following morning, the reverberations of Kylie Kelce's abrupt exit had only grown louder, with morning news programs looping the clip alongside split-screen commentary from hosts who couldn't resist dissecting the body language, the tone, and even the pauses between words. On social media, hashtags like hashtag Kylie walks off and hashtag Team Kylie trended alongside hashtag Team Jenna, turning the moment into a full-fledged fandom split that played out in real time through polls, memes, and lengthy opinion threads, some written with surprising seriousness as if this were a matter of national policy rather than daytime television etiquette. In Philadelphia, local radio stations that usually stuck to sports talk waded into the drama, callers debating whether Jenna's probing was justified journalism or a breach of basic respect, with one caller noting she didn't sign up to be reality TV just because she married Jason. In New York, NBC publicists worked overtime, crafting gentle talking points for Jenna's team and quietly reaching out to Kylie's representatives in hopes of repairing the relationship before it spiraled into a long-term rift. Behind the scenes, Jenna was said to be disappointed at how quickly the moment had been cast in a negative light, confiding to friends that her intention was to give viewers a more personal connection to Kylie, not to invade her privacy, though she admitted she might have pushed too far. Kylie, for her part, was equally measured in private, telling close friends that she hadn't planned to walk out, but had felt a clear line being crossed, and that she didn't want to reward that kind of media approach by pretending it was acceptable. Paparazzi caught her the next day running errands in casual clothes, flashing a polite but non-committal smile when asked about the incident, her silence only fueling further speculation. Online fan-made compilations of her past interviews were now circulating to demonstrate her consistency on privacy issues, reinforcing the perception that her walk-off was in line with her long-held principles. Meanwhile, in production offices, executives debated whether inviting her back would be a power move toward reconciliation or a risk of reigniting the same tension. with one insider quipping that the only thing more viral than Kylie walking off would be Kylie walking back on, but under her own conditions. In the wider cultural conversation, think pieces began appearing about the double standards faced by women in media, especially those adjacent to sports fame, with columnists pointing out how quickly the public feels entitled to their personal lives. It was becoming increasingly clear that this was no longer just a celebrity moment. It had tapped into a larger dialogue about privacy, respect, and the performative nature of daytime television, and whether, in the pursuit of relatability. Shows like Today with Jenna and Friends were blurring lines that some guests weren't willing to cross. Asterisk by midweek. The Kylie Kelce walk-off had morphed from a fleeting talk show moment into a fully entrenched media narrative, with every detail being scrutinized for clues about deeper tensions between public figures and the entertainment platforms that host them. Entertainment magazines published long-form pieces reconstructing the events of that morning. Starting from Kylie's arrival at the NBC studios, where eyewitnesses recalled her greeting crew warmly but maintaining a composed, almost guarded demeanor, to the exact segment when the conversation took its sharp turn, with writers transcribing Jenna's questions and Kylie's replies down to the pauses and inflections, noting how Kylie's voice grew quieter just before her final statement. Commentators on YouTube and TikTok uploaded side-by-side comparisons of Kylie's demeanor at the start of the interview versus her body language seconds before standing up, pointing out subtle signs of frustration, a tightness in her jaw, her hands folding in her lap, a glance toward the off-camera producers. Some viewers argued that Jenna had been baited by producers to push for a viral moment, while others theorized Kylie had planned the exit as a statement against invasive celebrity culture. In podcast discussions, industry veterans revealed that walk-offs, while rare, were often more complicated than they seemed, involving behind-the-scenes disagreements about topics, time limits, and how much control a guest truly has once the cameras are rolling. Back in Philadelphia, friends of the Kelce family reportedly rallied around Kylie, with a few making social media posts about protecting your peace and knowing when to leave the table, which fans quickly tied to the incident. Jenna, meanwhile, maintained her on-air professionalism. But subtle shifts were noticeable. Her interviews for the rest of the week avoided deeply personal lines of questioning, focusing instead on lighter topics as though she were consciously recalibrating her approach. PR analysts noted that NBC's official statement, released late Tuesday, was carefully worded to neither apologize outright nor place blame, instead framing the moment as a lively exchange that took an unexpected turn, a phrase so neutral it left everyone free to interpret it however they wished. By now, the footage of Kylie's walk-off had been remixed into every imaginable format set to dramatic music, slowed down for effect, even recreated in comedic skits by influencers, and each iteration only amplified the intrigue. For Kylie, the incident seemed to mark a quiet but firm declaration of her boundaries, while for Jenna and her producers, it was a stark reminder of how quickly a daytime show's warm, chatty energy can dissolve into something far more combustible when a guest feels the conversation has crossed an invisible line. Asterisk.